I recently found out that you can see a personal dietitian covered by insurance. There's this platform called Nourish that will match you with a dietitian based on whatever your concerns are, whether that's weight loss, eating disorders, autoimmune conditions, or something else. They're actually a network with major insurance providers, so most patients pay $0 out of pocket. 94% of patients pay $0 out of pocket. Find your dietitian at usenourish.com. That's usenourish.com.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
My name's Adele Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 312 of Legally Clueless. Thank you for being part of this family. If you are an OG day one member of this family, I truly appreciate you. If you have just discovered us, welcome to the family. You've picked an incredible episode to start off with. Although since the story in this one is a part 2, you may want to listen to episode 311 first. But what's coming up in this episode? Listen to this.
Because the whole thing is to take away the women's enjoyment about sex, which is insane. According to Kikuyu tradition, you're supposed to enjoy sex in your marriage. In fact, you can divorce your mate if a man or woman is not satisfying you in that way. The Chinese used to bound their women feet so that they can be small and dainty. We are talking about binding them so strongly and so hard so that they were crippled. That is savagery. In Victorian time, their corsets used to be so tight to make the women waist tiny that they used to almost be suffocating. But those who did not circumcise girls were very much hated because we were trying to emulate the Europeans. I asked my mom, Mommy, how do girls get circumcised? And she tapped at my clitoris and she said, that is what they cut.
That is Waithĩra's wonderful, inspiring story that is going to have you connecting with some things and having strong thoughts about other things. It's coming up a little later in this episode. But how are you doing? You know, I am moving through, what would I call it? An air of gratitude for this space. And first and foremost, thank you again for being part of this family, for listening every week, and for turning up for our events. My heart is so full. Group therapy began this past week, which is something we do here at Legally Clueless. And I met so many members of our beautiful family eager to start their journey to healing traumas, to understanding their human experience. First, I have to commend you, because the courage it takes to do that, incredible, you know? And just being in the room with you before you broke out into your tiny group therapy sessions with the 3 different therapists from Shamiri, and then being with you after you came back and seeing your eyes light up because you understood something that maybe you were grappling with. Oh my word. My heart so full. So full. I also recorded 2 very special episodes of Legally Clueless that will be out very soon. One of them touches on feminism, you know, and it is something that I am a feminist, but my placement in feminism, or my definition of how I connect with it, has evolved, you know. And during this episode, I finally got the words and the insight from one of our guests to help me, because I shared that there was a time, based on my experiences, that anger was what was driving my fight for women's rights, right? And then slowly the anger left. And I was wondering who I was without it. It had been my identity for so long. It had been at the core of my fight that I felt lost when it was replaced by love. And I wondered if love could fuel my feminism, you know? And one of the speakers talked about how your definition of feminism or how you see yourself in it can evolve. Oh my God. I do not think she knew just how much freedom she gave me. And I can't wait for you to watch that episode. It's going to be out on our YouTube next week. So if I were you, I would subscribe to our YouTube channel ASAP. A link to it is in the show notes. Also, oh my word, you know how passionate I am about making sure on your wellness journey, you do not leave your body behind. I mean, I've even brought you my personal doctor to talk to you about this. So another thing I got up to this week, clearly I've been very busy, group therapy, feminist episodes, but another thing I did was sit down with one of Kenya's top fitness coaches, and we talked fat loss, we talked hormones, we talked protein, we talked what an African woman's body needs as we age, and so much more. This will also be coming to our YouTube pretty soon because she is the speaker at our upcoming wellness talk, which is on the 28th of March. So clear that day, book that morning. More details will be following shortly. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on these two spectacular episodes. Sign up for our newsletters so you don't miss out on any of our events and my weekly love letters to you. All the links to do that are in the show notes. Now, in this episode, we dive into part 2 of Waithĩra's story. And this is honestly is my favorite part of her story because she unpacks African cultural rites of passage or traditions in a very level-headed way that I found to be so refreshing. She shares about the book she wrote after mental illness claimed the life of her daughter and so much more.
If you have health insurance, you might be able to see a personal dietitian for $0 out of pocket. Nourish connects you with a dietitian that fits your needs, covered by your insurance. Nourish accepts hundreds of insurance plans, and 94% of patients pay $0 out of pocket. Meet with your dietitian online and message them anytime through the Nourish app. With hundreds of 5-star reviews from real patients, you know you're in good hands. Find your dietitian at usenourish.com. That's usenourish.com.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
So as I was saying, my father was quite progressive, thank God. My mother was more traditional, but she did not care about female circumcision either. She knew it was kind of archaic. So my father, I remember actually the first time I was aware. Now, obviously, for us men's circumcision is a must. Okay, my father went to a missionary school, but I believe even if my father was not educated in a missionary school, he would not have circumcised his women, his children, his female children. He really was a very progressive man. And I remember what he once said, and that always offended my mom. What happened is that when we lived in Mushada, told you were in Mushada, you know where Banana is? You know where Mushada is? That area. Now, I wrote an article back when I was a young lecturer at State University of New York. And in that article, I talked about a female circumcision. Incidentally, one thing, because semantics here are important, I don't call it female mutilation. I emphasize, my mother wasn't mutilated. My mother and her mother, my grandparents, and the people before that, they were not mutilated. That is very disrespectful. And I get very upset with Africans who took up this, European term and ran with it. Female mutilation. Now, let me just maybe correct it a little bit. I think in some cases you can call it that because there are, I understand, I don't want to offend any group, so let me not name any group, but there are some groups where the operation is so brutal that later on it interferes with their childbearing. They actually become incontinent and the feces and everything. I don't mean to gross anybody out. After they had, babies, they leak and they have to, there's actually a place where they are. It's a very brutal thing. So I take that back in a way because there is such thing where the ritual mutilates women. In the Kikuyu, from what I understand and what my mother explained to me, it's more of symbolic. It's like cutting not the whole clitoris maybe, or maybe just the clitoris, but with the other group, they literally scrape the whole menorah and, the inner lips. They sew it, the thing, and just leave a small space for peeing so they also then can remain, virgins. Because the whole thing is to take away the women's enjoyment about sex, which is insane. And which is kind of weird, if I may touch a little bit on this, because according to Kikuyu tradition, you're supposed to enjoy sex in your marriage. In fact, you can divorce your mate if a man or woman is not satisfying you in that way. And to this end, what they used to do? They used to have specially made huts where young women and men who are after they menstruate and they're expected to marry soon, they'll go there for courting. The mothers would tie them tightly so that there will be no temptation of penetration or whatever, but they would go there and neck. The young men and women would go there and please themselves sexually without any actual sexual intercourse. And that made you sensitized to your body, and So there was all these things. Well, of course, we were told that they are horrible and they are savage. And actually, to me, that's a very, very sophisticated and very nice. But I don't know what you're supposed to do when you have your clit cut, where all the sensation for sexual enjoyment is concentrated. Now, I have talked to people who are circumcised. They still can enjoy sex. Obviously, that is better if you have, for those who are not circumcised, because again, all the nerves are there. But obviously, also you can have virginal orgasm, which often mature women do, and especially if a man knows what he is doing, they are going to get it. But obviously, taking away that part of the anatomy shortchanges the woman. There's no use for it. But I understand in terms of culture, and what I explain in my article. The Chinese, for example, every culture has had its own archaic rituals and customs that they ought to be ashamed of. And some of them are not so archaic because we are seeing them today. And I mentioned them at a program I was in with the famous, I was featured on, now it is no longer, it is debunked, the station. It was like a CNN kind of station, Sonia Live it was called at the time, back in the 90s. Is it 92 around or whatever? And I went on with a famous writer called Alice Walker. She wrote The Color Purple. They were calling questions and what have you, and some people supported me in the idea that, the West disrespected very much the way they framed the debate about female circumcision. I still call it female circumcision, not female mutilation. But to go back to what I was saying, every culture has its own. The Chinese used to bound their women feet so that they can be small and dainty. We are talking about binding them so strongly and so hard so that they were crippled, so they can be small and dainty. That is savagery. In Victorian time, their corsets used to be so tight to make the women waist tiny, right? That they used to almost be suffocating. They would actually interfere with their innards. They would be so, you look at those pictures from the Victorian times, the corsets, 1800s even, the corsets were so, that their insides were so constricted. It was so bad for their health. Now, today, let's not even go to that archaic stuff. Every time people see, and this is where the social media becomes very dangerous for our young children, all the features you see on mostly white or even black people for that matter today, they are all artificial. The lips have been injected with collagen. They look like they have stung by bees. The noses have been altered from their, And in fact, one of my Jewish friends told me one of the gifts that a Jewish girl gets when they get of age, like 16, is to get a nose job so they don't have that very Jewish appearance, So there are people now who are buying butts for crying out loud. A lot of them are dying. Now there's some Black people in America who think that, Black people in general, not necessarily me, are blessed with something here. They don't need that. So, but to copy the West and this social media, they are uninformed, go to Mexico or to some other country and get this BBL, these big butts done. Do you know how many people have died? One of the ways, very quickly, so that we can move, that I learned about circumcision, I started to say. So I know that boys used to get married because of Christianity. My brothers were circumcised in the hospital. By the same token, my father had one of the traditional men to attend them afterwards. After they came from the hospital, they were attended by traditional Kikuyu men who cleaned them and applied the herbs for healing. And they also taught them about why they got circumcised and how they should behave, blah, blah. So our culture was not necessarily completely lost by going to the hospital, which I recommend because it's more sanitary and more. Although, even then, people did not die from circumcision because the healers, the circumcisers knew exactly what kind of leaves, even today, they do them, what to use, and they had to prevent infections and what have you. So one of my brothers who I fought in the pecking order when he came from the hospital, again, there was already prepared place where he would be doctored by actually that guy used to be the head of the farm, and he was very traditional. Jeroge was his name. And so I tried to pick, of course. I was a child. You know how children, they are very curious. So I'm trying to pick to try and see what's going on. Of course, I did not see. I had my brother crying because I guess it's painful. But, and then he would be put outside and fed, and then he would sit with him and tell him, why you got circumcised, now you are going to be a man, blah, 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 blah. So one night, at Mushada, I don't know whether you know this, but those who did not circumcise girls were very much hated because we were trying to emulate the Europeans. They would come in December, that was the most festive time, and they would sing the circumcision songs, which are usually very naughty and very decadent. The children, the three of us children, the youngest at home, there was the kitchen. You know how kitchen is separated from the main house? And then there was another home, so we would stay with the maid, usually the maid in there. But me, the youngest, I would go to the living room with the jiko, for heat with my parents, because I was the youngest. So while there, I heard them singing. And my older siblings, I was too young to be teased, but my older siblings were very miserable and teased all the time. And so I had them singing all this, and, again, they're very explicit language. So my father, usually, because he was a teacher, he would be marking papers or reading the Bible or whatever. So I asked, because I was a very curious child, I asked my mom, Mommy, how do girls get circumcised? By this time, I knew how the boys get circumcised. I didn't know quite, but I knew it involved down there. But so I'm like, how do girls exactly get circumcised? I must have been maybe 9 or 8 or 9. And my mother was an incredible woman. Again, another amazing progressive woman. She never missed words. If you ask her questions before my menstruation, she knew when she detected I was about to menstruate, she sat me down and she educated me about all of this. And when once, my older sister had an accident too, she explained to me what it was. But she waited for every stage, like a real psychologist, to make sure I could handle that information. And she said, Waithĩra, and honest to God, I'm not she patted my legs. And she tapped at my clitoris. And she said, that is what they cut.
I hope you're enjoying this episode, and I'm so glad that you're part of this family. We're taking a small ad break, but we'll be right back.
If you have health insurance, you might be able to see a personal dietitian for $0 out of pocket. Nourish connects you with a dietitian that fits your needs, covered by your insurance. Nourish accepts hundreds of insurance plans, and 94% of patients pay $0 out of pocket. Meet with your dietitian online and message them anytime through the Nourish app. With hundreds of 5-star reviews from real patients, you know you're in good hands. Find your dietitian at usenourish.com. That's usenourish.com.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
And now, back to the episode.
And my dad went, stop that. The circumcision of women, makes me cringe. And my mom very calmly told, of course they're speaking in Kikuyu now, told him, listen, Tiradi, he used to call it, his name was Tiraskafdiai, over there. Listen, just because we chose to not circumcise our girls doesn't mean that it is not our tradition. And the child asked. I had to tell her. And my father had nothing else to say. I thought that was very powerful, and I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I appreciated it so much on my mom and saying that. But my mother was always, if you asked her a question, she told you. And my father too, straight up, without being didactic. There's no preaching, nothing. Once my father and I were walking from the Kenya Science, and we saw, there were all these Europeans that used to teach there, and we saw one of the Europeans there, and it was a very windy day, and the hair was blowing everywhere. And he said, Waithĩra, look at that man. And it wasn't supposed to be a down, like talking badly about him. But let me tell you how this, and truly, please, if it's not too long, let me also zero in on why actually this is important to mention. Because I'll tell you about a white and black girl on the media. My father said, look at our hair. Look how beautiful it is. There is nothing shaking it. Look how we are walking, and we don't have to keep on going like this. Look, he has to keep on. He was not saying this to put him down. But do you know what that does to a little girl? Because I was still young. That gives you some kind of, I'm good. I'm saying this because I see a lot of less of confidence with who we are today as Africans, as Black people. And I'll tell you, so in the media, there is this girl, this person who has a business of dolls. She's promoting very aggressively a white doll, white talking doll. I've never, in all my years, and I had my two first children very young, never, ever bought these two things for my children. A white doll or a gun, toy gun. Never. I bought them books or I bought them black dolls. Waithĩra still has her black doll stored in the garage, in the basement rather, in my home. Because those things are images. So I commented very nicely. She came very strong, and other people told me I'm being racist. Colonial minds. I said, do you know of an experiment? I urge everyone, I urge you, especially the one selling. She told me how she has black dolls. I said, fine. Because you're not going to any European store, whatever, where they are selling, black dolls. And black dolls are really, she has some nice black dolls, by the way. She could promote that. She was aggressively specific. And these children, when they go there, what doll they are going to buy. Okay? So, and I know that there is an experiment. It's called the doll test. It was done in 1940s by a black psychologist about why black Americans hate themselves. The children were shown dolls, white and black dolls. And the black children were asked, which is the beautiful doll? They pointed always to the white doll. Repeatedly. Which is the intelligent doll? Constantly. These are 3, 4, 5-year-olds. Constantly. White doll. Which is the ugly doll? Black doll. Which is the bad doll? Black doll. Okay? Which one is sweet or whatever? Always associated with whiteness. Always associated with blackness, badness. So I said, there is really something. Children are like little animals, and they work like osmosis. They pull everything in. Just because you're telling them, oh, you can have black and white. Let me tell you, what image they see, why there is so much pain with our African Americans, brothers and sisters in America, is because of the slavery for years that has been perpetuated and continues to be perpetuated. I see the colonial minds are still, alive and well. Decolonizing the mind is what we need to do. The backlash I got not only from that woman, I told her, can we talk privately? I would love to meet with you. I wanted to. She came on too strong. A couple of others came on against it. We are very, leave people alone. You're being racist. People. We need Jesus. Well, we don't need Jesus, but it's just about. Actually, we don't. Religion sometimes is one of the. I don't want to say that, but anyway, because I don't want to be so controversial. But get your culture and language first before you go to religion, because that's even more of an important religion than any religion you ever get. But this book, I actually wrote it exclusively in Mamaroneck by the harbor. We live by the water even today. And I called it Requiem for Jerry. It's a collection of poems. It doesn't exist anymore, but this is a CD that comes with it. This here is a CD that also I have a friend. I talk about him every time I'm at an event. You heard me say about Dr. Groth. George Groth is like a brother to me. I love him to death. He's a psychologist and a genius who was given money to write operas when he was very young. He put music to some of my poetry, and some of this, Waithĩra sings some tracks on this, if you ever want to listen to. So, may I read one of the poems, Jacob? Yeah. Let me actually read why don't I read the cover to save time? I have an excerpt here. Our screams, our cries, they could have awakened the dead, but they ignored us and left you for dead. Exempted from how many screams must continue to die in the wind. That's one of the points in the book. A mother pours out her grief over the loss of her daughter in this collection of 34 poems, in which she blames not only the unforgiving mental illness and sometimes the jealous gods, quote unquote, that have robbed her of the very same gifts: humor, compassion, and creativity. that they have generously bestowed upon her. But the people and the institutions that for various reasons, misplaced beef and or revenge, stupid rigid laws, shame and stigma or indifference, conspire inadvertently or not with the illness to take the daughter's life. Alternating between grief and sadness, pain and anger, the book reveals the frustration faced by a parent trying to cope with the devastating news of her child's diagnosis, its subsequent effects on her and those who love her, as well as outside forces that appear to just want to compound the problem. Anyone who has lost a child or a loved one will recognize the 5 stages of loss and grief in this loving tribute. Waithĩra hopes that the book, along with her lyrics and music by Dr. George Groth, will provide solace to people struggling with mental illness, that is bipolar, depression, schizophrenia, and other mood disorders themselves and all their kin. Her aim is to shine a bright light on the universal problems victims of mental disorders and their families face, help eradicate the stigma associated with the disease, and bring attention to the policies that fail to protect some of our most vulnerable in our society. In this way, the writer believes the patient's screams will not, quote unquote, continue to die in the wind, and the pain and suffering as well as death of her daughter all will not be in vain. Yes, I wanted actually, this is like the poem from which the title. The poem is called Requiem for Jerry. I was there when you were the size of a pin in my stomach, when you were a tiny butterfly fluttering there. I felt your subtle kicks inside my womb. And as you grew in size and there was no more room, I felt you rise and begin your descent into the world. As you pushed your way down, through the mirror I saw you crown. And on that summer morning in 1977, you entered the world at 11:47. The doctor placed your small naked body on my stomach, all warm with life. And I wrapped my arms around your tiny form. What a feeling that was. The doctor cut your umbilical cord and I suckled you for the first time. How magical that was. I watched in fascination, a mother's love intoxication as you sucked your thumb until the knuckle grew a callus. My warm bosom was your pillow, where your delicate head lay as your little heart beat to the drum of life. When you uttered mommy for the first time, when you began crawling, when crawling turned into toddling and toddling into running, I was there. When you tripped and fell, I picked you up. When you didn't feel well, I nursed you. When you caught a nasty cold and your body burned with the fever, I put everything on hold and brought the fever down. When you almost lost an eye, princess, and the school said the door fell during recess, I never knew what really happened. I was there. I was there in the ER alone with you, cradling you in your blood-caked dress as you whimpered, and I secretly wept. Against my trembling bosom, I hugged you, trying to comfort and keep you from being scared. At your first dance classes, when they fitted you with your first pair of glasses, I was there. At your first recital, with your brother KK and Auntie Lucy in tow. We watched you from front row dancing on your toes. I was there too. At your 8th grade graduation, KK and I, just we two, to offer our love and adulation. Your hair was in beautiful braids, princess, and you shined in your brand new pink and black dress. We cheered and clapped as you shyly walked up the podium to get your diploma. I watched with pride, dreams swirling in my head of your great future ahead. When you graduated from high school, I came with your baby sister Waithĩra, your cousin Waithĩra, and your friend Linda too. We had come to cheer you on. The pictures taken that day tell part of the story as you basked in a graduate's glory. How radiant you looked in your blue gown and matching cap. How captivating was your smile. And what joy it was for us to be there. What privilege it was to be there. We were so proud of you, princess. Just like when you went to college and we came, your sister and soon to be your stepfather and I came. How full your head was with dreams. How filled mine was with hopes. Then the devil came from nowhere and snatched your mind, stole your dreams and my dreams. I cried and cried. I cried and tried to quiet your screams. But he held fast and wouldn't let go, held with might and wouldn't let go. He stole your laughter and held your mind hostage, took the very essence of your being and clung to it like smell on garbage. How he tortured your soul and cost your life a heavy toll. But I was there along with your stepfather too, there through and through as we tried to stand up to his thieving ways. We fought and fought to break his grip on your beautiful mind, but he took you on his mad trip, flinging your thoughts pell-mell as he went, determined to keep you unwell. I didn't give up though, couldn't let him hurt you so. Wouldn't let him continue to rip us apart, and therefore fought him with all my heart, fought him hard, fought him with everything I had. Alas, he was stronger than I was, stronger than all of us. He was determined to do harm. That's what evil does. And so, his brutal force won the battle, but not the war. For on the other side, that wondrous place where you now reside, no one recognized his face. There, where God's benediction reigns and our ancestors reside, he and death had no jurisdiction. And I was there. Though not physically there, I was there to hold your rapidly cooling hand as your lungs were emptying of air. Did you feel my warm breath on your cheek? Even those who'd gone before came. Did you hear the soft voice of my mother calling your name? Did you feel the tender touch of my father's hand on your shoulder? Did you see the extended hands of your uncles Mushero and Nganga and Getao, of Auntie Joki and cousin Waithĩra? Did you hear our ancestors' song and see your childhood friend Piu among this welcoming throng? They were all there to welcome you to your new home, there so you wouldn't be alone. We were all there. We'd come because you were not a child of Kevorui would come because you are a beloved child, and you are not a child of Kevorui. You are my child, our child. And so, from the time you were the size of a pin in my womb, a tiny butterfly fluttering there, up to your untimely journey to the tomb, I was there. I was there. There, through and through. I was there for you, princess. Thank you.
I hope you're enjoying this episode, and I'm so glad that you're part of this family. We're taking a small ad break, but we'll be right back.
I've been working with a Nourish dietitian for the last 6 months, and it's been life-changing. I've lost weight, healed my relationship with food, and have way more energy. Working with a dietitian online to create a personalized nutrition plan was so easy thanks to Nourish. The best part, I pay $0 out of pocket because Nourish accepts hundreds of insurance plans. 94% of patients pay $0 out of pocket. Find your dietitian at usenourish.com. That's usenourish.com.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
And now, back to the episode.
So, when I launched this, by the way, this is a self-published book, it was like standing room only. One of the things, and I'm finding this here in Kenya, because one of the things I honestly find in this beautiful home of mine, my first home that I love so much, we have amazing creative minds like you, what you're doing here, what we saw at the event. And I'm so encouraged. I'm so encouraged, but I'm also discouraged and saddened that you've heard of the Maslow's theory of needs. In other words, Maslow's theory of needs predicates that in order to move on to the secondary needs, we need to satisfy the primary needs. In other words, don't ask somebody who is starving, who has no food, who is sleeping in the streets, who has no shelter. We have to satisfy the basic needs of food, shelter, clothing, before we can ask you, what do you think about climate change? Do you get what I'm saying? What do you think of the next president? Do you think of what is happening in America, in Kenya? How about you go vote? Now, you satisfy first, you give the human being food, you give the human being clothing and shelter. Then the secondary, those are the primary needs. That's what Maslow's talked about. Then we have the secondary needs. We can talk about the weather, what is happening to our climate change. Today, if you go to a hungry person and start talking about it's raining so much because of global warming, we need the arts because there is no civilization on this earth in the history of humankind that ever survived without the arts. Without the arts, that is music, dance, poetry, stories, painting, okay? There is no civilization that ever survived without those things. Sculpturing, okay? I find so much richness in this country with that. But our leaders don't help. And I love our people because what happens is our people are so self-reliant. But can you imagine if only the government would say, we will kick some, we see you are very blessed with this. Let's help a kid who knows how to play violin. Let's encourage him playing chess, playing. So one of the things you find in the West is what I'm leading to. There is these opportunities. It was very easy for me to come from writing a book and saying, you know what, now let me organize where I can share this. Let me organize and say, let's talk about mental illness. After I was at the event Saturday, I talked about how when I launched this book, I had people coming from everywhere, people I know, people I didn't know, that they struggled with mental illness. One of the people had written a suicide note that morning. And after hearing me, they changed their mind. So, sharing our stories, whether orally, in writing, not being ashamed about a pathology that affects our brain like it would our kidneys, our heart. Taking this whole mess of mental illness that is killing us, that many people are suffering privately, taking it out of the darkness and into the light is my mission. That way I can ensure my baby never suffered and died in pain, and anybody else who ever suffered and continues to suffer with mental illness. That's my mission, and that's what drives me. The event I just did was called Waithĩra and Mental Illness, Healing Through Arts. Is that what it was? Healing through arts, right? And the idea is, honestly, arts is healing. We had some fantastic panelists, well known, some, in their field, experts, all brilliant. We had Farik Kimani. We had Jerry Mushero, who is a very well-known lawyer. We had Anne Mwaura, who works for Capital. And, we had, please don't let me forget, who else do we have? Because we had Dr. Hope. We had, who else did we have? We had me. And in the audience, of course, there are other people also who talked about their struggle with the depression. That is, it's a very pervasive illness. May I also add that this event was actually produced by a new company which was started by Waithĩra Longawa and Angela Moiruri, both work at Capital FM. The Vibe curators, and they did a fantastic job. I was very proud of them. That was an amazing. In closing, can I please read this quote from my book from another, a brilliant writer whose life was taken by mental illness. Okay, because this is also about prevention, talking about suicide and suicide prevention and awareness. Okay, so here I have this quote at the beginning of my book, Requiem for Jerry. And incidentally, may I also add, I have copies here in Nairobi. I can, some of them are signed. I can sign for anyone who will be happy, who will be willing to buy. The books are only 500 shillings. And this, you can gift it to someone or for yourself. Now, it says, the so-called psychotically depressed person who tries to kill herself doesn't do so out of quote, hopelessness or any abstract conviction that life's assets and debits do not square. And surely not because death seems suddenly appealing. The person in whom its invincible agony reaches a certain unendurable level will kill herself the same way a trapped person will eventually jump from the window of a burning high-rise. Make no mistake about people who leap from burning windows. Their terror of falling from a great height is still just as great as it would be for you or me standing speculatively at the same window just checking out the view. That is, the fear of falling remains a constant. The valuable here is the other terror, the fire's flames. When the flames get close enough, falling to death becomes the slightly less terrible of two terrors. It is not desiring the fall, it is the terror of the flames. And yet nobody down on the sidewalk looking up and yelling, "Don't!" and "Hang on!" can understand the jump. Not really. You'd have to have personally been trapped and felt flames to really understand the terror way beyond falling. Those are words by David Foster Wallace, an author who took his life who struggled with horrible depression and finally took his life when he was only 46 years old. And I end with that quote because there was a time, I understand this was just the other day, decriminalized in Kenya, suicide. Nobody, every one of us want to live. If we could live for 200-300 years, we could if we are healthy. But the painful, when somebody gets to a point where you suffer so much from mental illness that you see no way out, that's what happens. You take your life not because the death is so attractive or you don't want to live anymore. It's just because the pain is just too much. And the author, Wallace, compares this to when you are trapped in a burning building. Do you stay there and burn to death? Or do you take your chance and just jump and break every limb? So please, let's all think about this and extend our hands to anybody who is suffering or struggling with mental illness. And one final thing, don't ever, ever, ever tell anyone struggling with mental illness when they tell you they are hurting or they have depression. Let's pray. Take them to a doctor, to a therapy. Listen to them also. It's not even necessary to talk. Sometimes people just want to talk, and talking can even prevent them from hurting themselves. They can give them a day, a reprieve until they get help. Never ever dismiss anything and say, "Oh, come on, you're joking. Oh, you just want attention. You just want to." Please don't. You could be sending that person to death.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. There is just so much I connected with in this story. My goodness, where do I start? Okay, I love that she brought out that you can disagree with certain cultural traditions, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't learn about them. I would find that if I disagreed with something in my tribe or my country's cultural beliefs or traditions, I would just check it out. I wouldn't read up more about it. I'd be like, meh. But you can still learn more about something even if you disagree with it at face value. You know, I also connected with the bits she talked about sex. I am so passionate about having good sex. Maybe it's because my sex life began with so much trauma, which I've shared about on this podcast before in public, that for a long time, that became the identity of my sex life. I don't think I was even in the state of mind to truly enjoy sex. And enjoying sex for me is not just the orgasm. It's where my mind's at, you know? It's why am I in that relationship, be it a serious relationship or a casual hookup. And when I look back, I just wasn't in a place in my mind to fully enjoy sex in the manner that I define a brilliant sexual experience to be. Now, I am. I am enjoying sex. And I think women, specifically African women, should enjoy sex. You know, I'm so proud of many of our African cultures and traditions for prioritizing women's enjoyment of sex and in how they diversely defined different types of relationships in a very accommodative way, you know? But when I look at now, there is just so much shame with women owning their sexuality. And I connected with this in the story, and it just left me wondering, when did that disconnect happen? The other thing I connected with is the dolls test. My mom never bought my sisters and I Barbie dolls, or any dolls for that matter. And I'm happy because I think they portrayed a very false representation of what women or girls looked like. So I have never owned a doll. I had many stuffed animals. In fact, I remember my favorite one was this stuffed rabbit called Baby Margaret. I had her for years, you know, but that was it. Never, ever owned a doll. And I don't know what my mom's reason for it was, but I'm so thankful that she did that. Enough about what I connected with. What did you connect with? Please drop a comment wherever you're listening to this episode on. Also in the show notes is a link for you to connect with Waithĩra and to just learn more about the important work she's doing when it comes to mental health awareness. Learn where you can get her book. I have it. I have a copy actually, and I'm really excited to comb through that poetry. But yeah, really eager to hear what you connected with from her story. Last but not least, thank you. Thank you for being part of this family. I truly appreciate you, and I believe you have everything it takes to heal. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.
Looking to improve your diet in the new year? Try seeing a personal dietitian with Nourish. Nourish has hundreds of dietitians who specialize in a variety of health concerns, including weight loss, gut health, and more. Meet with your dietitian online and message them anytime through the Nourish app. Nourish accepts hundreds of insurance plans. 94% of patients pay $0 out of pocket. Find your personal dietitian at usenourish.com. That's usenourish.com.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to chumbacasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at chumbacasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.